This is the biggest service export for the Victorian economy. It's worth multiple billions of dollars. It's worth 69,000 Victorian jobs right through the sector. So it's important that way. But I think, as you said, Dirk, upstairs, I focus more on the other long-term legacy things. She said half-price tickets for the Melbourne Theatre Company at the right time in the week where you can sit in the front row.
Yeah, well.
Like, how amazing is that, guys?
Hi there, Dirk Mulder here, CEO and founder of the Koala News, coming to you from Wurundjeri Country, Melbourne, Victoria. It's my pleasure to welcome you to a very special edition of the Global Horizons podcast. Rob is in France at the moment, and so I've come off the bench and have sat down with Minister Steve Dimopoulos. The Minister has just launched the international strategy for Victoria for the next few years. It's a refresh of the last one, and it took place here in Hardware Lane, Victoria, the Study Hub of Study Melbourne. It's a fantastic location. If you haven't been here, I highly advise that you do. The third floor was where the minister's briefing took place, and the launch was. It was a packed room for those, just to give you context. And immediately after, I sat down with the minister. Please enjoy this special edition of the Global Horizons podcast. Welcome to Global Horizons, Minister Steve Dimopoulos, member for Oakleigh, Minister for Economic Growth, Minister for Sport and Major Events. In Melbourne, that must be a very good thing to be. But most importantly, you're also the Minister that looks after international education in the state of Victoria. Welcome to Global Horizons.
Thanks, Dirk. It's lovely to be here.
Excellent. Mate, just for context for viewers, a few minutes ago you were upstairs, so we're currently in the study hub for Study Melbourne, but located on Hardware Lane, which is such a great facility. A few minutes ago, you're upstairs up on level 3, I believe it was, launching the brand new international education strategy for the state of Victoria. How'd it go?
Yeah, it was great. So we had industry people here. When I say industry, higher education providers, from universities to the private providers to everybody in the ecosystem. We had incredible international students, many of them Study Melbourne ambassadors who've chosen to go and be a Study Melbourne ambassador because they've loved their experience being here and studying. It was really great. And what we were doing, we were launching the international education strategy, the refreshed strategy, because the other one expired in 2025. And it's an unashamed support for and putting a foot forward firmly in the camp of supporting international students in different ways. So clearly we have international students here. 322,000 decided to make their journey to study in Melbourne and Victoria in 2025. But importantly, because of the national settings and some international factors, we've got Study with Victoria. So more opportunities for students to study from home, from their home country, but with Victorian institutions. So that's a big play with this. The other thing is just we always, in Victoria, we always prioritise the student experience. I know it sounds easy to say, but you, Dirk, mentioned the hub here. It's amazing. It's in Hardware Lane. It's literally, I said to the forum upstairs, it's in a graffitied, beautiful graffiti, not bad graffiti, graffitied laneway of Melbourne with a car park right opposite and bars and restaurants. This is the very iconically Melbourne experience. But you walk in here and it's so warm and so comforting, and it's a real anchor. They can drop in here anytime. So the student experience matters, but we've also got an integrated welfare support model here where literally we provide students who are studying in Victoria with support, free legal support and social support for accommodation issues, for employment issues, because, 322,000 people, in a new country, you'll find maybe a hurdle here or a hurdle there. So they come here not just for the unlimited free coffee and a place to sit down and feel safe and anchored. They also come here for actual support through the legal system and through other social work support.
Yeah, I loved in your speech earlier, you spoke a little bit about the ambassador program, and what I loved as a former international director and running on-campus ambassador programs, I found exactly the same thing. And one of the things that you mentioned was that ambassadors that enrol the following year, if I can, do so in a high percentage because of the help that they actually receive themselves. And I think that's testament to the program that you're on.
Yeah, and it'd be like, you love a merchant so much where you buy your products from that you end up buying shares in the place. It feels like it's the most resounding endorsement. So I love it. But, what an incredible model, though, that the Study Melbourne ambassadors help put out the messages, the people don't trust increasingly, unfortunately, news sources, whether they be Facebook news sources or legacy news sources. They trust what somebody else tells them who has an affinity with them. So having Study Melbourne ambassadors out there saying to other international students, you can get help here. More so, saying to their people back home, their generation, you can study here. It's actually a pretty great place. Australia's a great place to study. I've got to say, Australia's incredible. But Melbourne and Victoria do international education and student experience in a way that is even better than the average Australian model.
Yep. Let's move on quickly.
So, CC, I said Melbourne's fantastic, and then New South Wales, so let's move on quickly.
For those listening, I am a New South Welshman, so we did have a little laugh off camera earlier on. But no, in terms of, it is, look, honestly, Melbourne is a great city. There's no doubt it's one of the world's best cities. I think you mentioned earlier some stats around number 1, number 3, and number 5, which absolutely rings true. And I've got a really good friend based here in Melbourne, and she's constantly reminding me of those facts.
And I love Sydney too, by the way, but Melbourne is best.
So driving down to Melbourne, I saw on the back of a number plate the education state. And I don't think it comes to any surprise for listeners that international education is Victoria's number 1 export. Talk us a little bit about you mentioned earlier in your speech, it's not just about the dollars. It comes with investment. It comes with connection that maybe 10 or 20 years down the track. Talk us through a little bit about how important international education is to this state.
Yeah, of course. So if I could touch on the economics briefly, we don't have mining industries in the same way. We've got more headquartered mining companies headquartered in Collins Street in Melbourne than anywhere else. But in terms of mining activity, it's Queensland, it's WA, and it's New South Wales. We have a largely service economy. We also, mind you, interestingly, I say that, but we also the manufacturing capital of the country with 270,000 jobs in manufacturing. But we're heavily services based. This is the biggest service export for the Victorian economy. It's worth multiple billions of dollars. It's worth 69,000 Victorian jobs right through the sector. So it's important that way. But I think, as you said, Dirk, upstairs, I focus more on the other long-term legacy things. When you get a population that from around the world that comes and stays here for a little bit, they're going to be ambassadors for the rest of their lives about this place. But many of them end up staying permanently. That means we have, as an economy and as a society, language skills which are unparalleled. We have business connections with the rest of the world that are unparalleled because of these international students. And also, if you look at some of there's multiple strengths about the Victorian economy, but if I can pick 2, medical research and pharmacology is a big strength here, and as is a startup community, often is life and health sciences, but other startup, to give you a proof point, 50% of all exports of pharmaceuticals from Australia to the rest of the world come from Victoria. And if you look at this startup community, for the first time this year, we became the national leader in venture capital investment in startups. We've now got a startup community worth $140 billion market capitalisation. Growth in the last 10 years, about 20-fold. Now, there are 2 sectors of the economy where international students play a significant role because they transition into, many of them transition into either startup world because they're so smart, or in medtech and medical. So I don't think you could have such a profound heft in those industries without opening yourself up to the global community. And that often starts with international students, because one of the awesome students upstairs from Malaysia, said she started her journey in a campus in Malaysia. You remember that, right? And then that was her kind of, in my language, not hers, her training wheels before she came here and felt better about it. But the minute you open yourself up to the world, you then get these incredible people who choose to stay here and infuse these economic industries with more power, more gravitas, and more international and global links. That matters for a trading state like Victoria. We have 23 trade offices around the world. We're global in our outlook, both in our sports and our major events and our culture, but we're global in our trade and economics.
Picking up on that, I know there's some research out of the US that talks a little bit about international students and their entrepreneurism, and actually, and I want to say, and don't quote me, I want to say it's 3 to 4 times more likely an international student will start their own company and that will actually invest, and like you say, Viv, end up in a place of venture capital or investment where they're actually leading in the community rather than actually just falling into a job and following the mainstream. So from an entrepreneur point of view, I think
that makes sense to me too. And I don't know, I'm not a psychologist or haven't done the kind of empirical research or the scientific research, but I feel in a way, if you've got the guts to pack your bags, go overseas, leave your mum and dad and your family and your town or your city or your village to study somewhere else, you probably got to get up and go to start up.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. Obviously, there's global competition. You spoke a little bit earlier about studying with Victoria. There's global competition for international students to come onshore. There's now increasing competition to set up offshore. From a Victorian perspective, what makes Victoria different to other states? And I use the word comparative advantage, but what is it that you want to tone up from a Victorian point of view to say, come and study here? And again, I take my hat off to you publicly in saying that you're one of the few politicians I've heard recently that has stood up on a podium and said, we're open for business, we want students, we want migrants, we want to continue with the tradition that was long established. So congratulations to you. But
Thanks.
From a Victorian perspective, what does that look like?
Thanks, Dirk. And the Premier is really big on this, Jacinta Allen. We stand for this sector for all the reasons we've discussed: social power, economic power, and just the global trade links. I think what makes us different is, the transnational stuff is important. That's why we've got the $5 million fund to assist the providers overseas, or Victorian providers who have an overseas presence, to embellish that presence and to do more. Have more opportunities. But I think also makes us special is we have a full circle of humanity when it comes to international students. They're not an economic model. They're not a widget. I always talk about the economics second. They're human beings and their families trust us to look after them. We have a depth of culture and arts. One of the awesome students, I think she may have been from China, I can't recall now, talked about we have cultural scene, which is unparalleled. And the one example she gave, which I love, and I'm sure some other cities have this as too, but we have it in spades across the cultural sector. She said half-price tickets for the Melbourne Theatre Company at the right time in the week where you can sit in the front row.
Yeah, well.
Like, how amazing is that, right? So Melbourne Theatre Company is a preeminent theatre company in this country. And then you've got on the sports, all the other major events. But also I said up there, the other thing that makes us special, we have I think we're more open to the international world. We have been migrants come here in the 1850s for the gold rush, second half of the century. So I think we're just always more open. But when you study with Victoria overseas, you're still more likely to have a touch point back here at some point. And in that touch point, we're still better because we prioritize the student experience. We want them to feel safe, connected, and heard, as well as having an outstanding world-class education. So even if you're over there, you still have the connection here with all the support services when you do eventually come and do a year here or finish a degree here.
Well, Minister Steve Dimopoulos, I know you're a busy man. Thank you for joining us on Global Horizons. Thank you again for launching the new international education strategy, and thank you for being a champion of the sector.
Thanks, Dirk. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. That was lovely. Thanks.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Global Horizons podcast, consider subscribing to our newsletter. Search for Global Horizons podcast and then just pop in your email address, and that way you will never miss out on all of the critical international education news that you need to stay up to date with. This episode has been produced on Garrigal Land in Sydney. Our video and audio editor is Len Zamora, and I'm your host, Rob Malicki. Have an awesome day. See you in the next episode.